Hi guys, it's Celine. It's Friday, the 2nd of April, just before the Easter little holiday that we're going to be having, just staying at home, but at least husband will be home as well. I wanted to come on quickly, hopefully, and share with you a bit more about what's been going on this side, because there's been interesting developments. I've also been to town to the artist supply store. You have to phone in beforehand, make an appointment, but that's actually fine. It worked fine. I was in there only for 15 minutes in total, but that was, enough for me to get what I wanted. I've been working on this booklet a bit, not that much recently, because I wanted to do something about the fact I have pasted in these photographs that I've printed out for it's all about shrines that we visited, my husband and I, mostly Mother Mary shrines or things like that. Some of them are fairly conventional. I've shown this a couple of times already. The thing is, the paper that I used to make this booklet out of for 80% is a bit on the thin side. I'd forgotten about that, and actually as my pages get filled in with actual images and paints and bits and things, it flattens itself, it sorts itself out. Actually what I've done is I bought 3 big sheets of different types of paper, and in this case it actually worked rather well to give it more a backing, so it's a bit more, it's sturdier. This is the paper that's on the back here. I hope you can make that out. It's a handmade paper with little dried flowers in, and there's 2 more types like this fabulous batik sheets and stuff. So this looks, to me, I hope you can really see the color like this. This looks nice to me. The combination of the kind of green turquoisey type colors is it's working. I'm fairly pleased with the result. It will never look like it came out of a machine or anything, because that's not what's happening here. It does have to dry. It needs to dry, because there's my wallpaper glue, this type, that I use for this stuff, is water-based. It's really nice glue to use, but I do think it needs to dry a bit longer before I can actually go in and paint and write and do my things in there. Looking forward to that. It's coming together, it's happening. So I've got quite a bit left over of those beautiful types of paper that I can use for other projects at whatever time. I think this is enough for the booklet to just have those 6 extra layers in there. I also got me a new bottle of ink and a new marker. I have worked, and I've shown that before, with these new Van Gogh type. These are the little papers that they're wrapped in. And this is what the paint actually looks like. It's minuscule. This is a lot of paint. It doesn't look like much, but it's really a lot of paint. I have those colors, which looks like, let me see whether, I hope I can show it to you somehow. Somewhere, this should be possible to show. There's a, if I move it around like that, there are areas which are shiny and like mother of pearl like. And I have 3 different types, or actually 4 different types of paint now, where that is what you get. So you get a shiny, like a metallic effect, or softer than that, a mother of pearl type of effect. So I've got actual mother of pearl powder in a little flask with water and gum arabic, which is just silvery in color. I had gotten to try out this. I hope you can see what that does. At some point or other, I will have to look back and see. It does actually have the shine on itself like that as well. And I bought a second one. This is the blue shiny, blue mother of pearl type shine. And I've got a green one now. So let's see whether that will film. Trying to just, hold it in different positions so as to see whether you can actually see the difference there. I think you can actually make some of that out along the line somewhere. I've also got a nice darker emerald green. That's the first one I showed you. It just comes falling out like that. It's just a pellet of paint. It doesn't even come off on your fingers like that at all. So it needs water, and you have to rub at it a bit with your brush for the paint to start coming off. Great stuff, especially the combo with darker under surfaces like darker inks or paints underneath, and then using the mother of pearl. It just gets so vibrational, just like my hair is trying to show at the same time. It's like these energy patterns. It's fabulous. Oh yeah, number 4 that I've got is this one. So I've got normal mother of pearl solution like paint made. I've got those 2 that I just showed you that have the sheen effect, and this is the same stuff where you can't really see it, only if I were to rub it on my fingers. Sorry about that, I just had my muesli, so there's a bit of yogurt still in my system. This is an acrylic paint, so the other 2, those little pellets here, that's, oh yeah, that actually flashed really well there, just for a second. This is aquarelle water, what's that called? Watercolor paint. So yeah, so this is also water soluble, but it's a bit more plasticky, and it's actually got a different color to the blue. They're both blue interference paints. I'm going on about paints the whole time. It's on my mind. I'm pleased that my book is okay. I am going to be okay working on this for a bit longer this afternoon. Today I will be doing that. And but there are other things on my mind, and they're complicated things. So if you haven't got a drinky, this is the moment to pause and go and get one, because I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make myself try and talk about this, but it's not really simple. So I've had a bit of a week here. I'm trying to figure out, other than by just jumping in and doing my thing any odd how to communicate what I have found in my friend's birth chart. That is finally like an epiphany for me about how I related to her, how she relates to me, without it being a problem. I do not yet know enough. I did find a YouTube channel that talks about the situation in terms of astrology that my friend has, and how that affects her, how that affects people. There's the person, I'll put the link to the channel in the description, or even to one of those specific videos, because yeah, it's really, I find this, most of my viewers, most of you people out there aren't really all that much into astrology, because you would be over there instead of over here. This isn't really an astrology channel. However, recently there have been 2 times where I myself use astrology quite a lot, and the more I get these times of epiphany like this, the clearer it is to me that there are some elements, some bits in a horoscope, in a birth chart, or even the chart of a situation or a time at a, one time or other, where having that information just makes all the difference. But it's really hard to explain, and it is hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have this interest, who doesn't have this, fixation on all the planetary symbols and, oh, it's a Mercury, so it's cool, which is what I tend to, because you're into that stuff. If you're not into that stuff, what does it convey to you? I have no idea. So I also don't want to be judgmental or to appear judgmental towards this person that I've known for 3 decades nearly. It's just that we're connected also in terms of our birth charts quite strongly. So we're really fond of each other. We have been really fond of each other, and we've been really supportive of each other mutually for a very long time. And there's big differences between the two of us in terms of culture, in terms of where you come from, the language you learned, and all the rest of it. I've always assumed that to the extent that I had an occasional problem with her and she with me, therefore, obviously, because I can't just sit here and, pretend that it's only, it's not anybody's fault. It's not maladjustment. It's not that. There is a positive quality to this chart that, however, so far has given us a recurring set of problems. Communication problems. Problems of misunderstanding, misaligning with my friend. Is that worth talking about or what? Yes, I think it's worth talking about. I'm having a bit of a struggle here to find a mode to talk about this that isn't judgmental, that isn't, I don't want to put her in a place of anything less than sovereignty. I don't like that. But there have been lack of alignment issues between us. And I've often wondered, it's so easy to assume, especially in my type of situation, in our type of situation where you have grown up with, a lack of alignment in many ways. So you tend to just think that's normal. You tend to just go into this struggle whether one person is absolutely right or the other person is absolutely right. And therefore, in either of those cases, the other guy is the one that's misaligned and wrong and all that. And some people just have a better background, and because their background was ordered and structured and reliable, and reliability was a normal thing in their lives, which it wasn't on my end, by the way. Just in case you failed to notice, that's something why I have the things, why I do the things I do. And sometimes things are difficult because I didn't grow up with a sense of reliability all that much. I mean, there was a certain level where things worked as long as I didn't, one of a set of options, like as long as I didn't want to be free, as long as I didn't want to engage and make permanent contact with people other than my mum, growing up, I didn't have any other people. So there was a lot of misalignment in there. So much. I'm realizing more and more that my life was not aligned. And it's painful. So yeah, over the past couple of weeks, I have referred to astrology in the sense that both Chiron and my Black Moon positions have given me a new perspective. So that's number one of the where astrology suddenly creates epiphany kind of moments, That was the first one where I felt like, okay, now I get it. Now I can really see where misalignment happens for me, in the sense that I hold on to my old way of doing things. And that the old way of doing things, of keeping control and keeping emotional control and keeping a stiff upper lip, if you like, keeping, pretending like nothing's much going on for me emotionally when it isn't, when that's not the truth, really, then that has a set of consequences, and later on I run into those consequences for myself. So there's I made a couple of videos already about my whole vulnerability issue, where I chose to approach this whole thing differently, to try to go to the positive side of this and to live with my vulnerable self instead of my self-defense self, which is what I have put in place for 50 odd years, to avoid getting crushed in the whole crazy things that were going on, So there was a moment a few weeks ago where I suddenly had this is my situation, this is the astrology, and it just clicked. And I just I just had that, vision, an instant where I figured out the consequences of the behavior and the behavior as a result of an attitude and so on and so forth. I use astrology for therapy there. That's why this is why this is my theme today. So the other thing with my friend here is that I suppose basically what happens each time is that whenever there is like a often quite small conflict of opinions between my friend and I, we get into a mode of feeling misunderstood, of course, which is completely normal, and a factor that's something that just plays into this whole situation at the time is that there is an illusion of dominance happening for both of us in a different way, but both of us feel like the other one is dominant, quite, beyond belief. She's an Aries, I'm a Leo. So we both are, strong-willed, positivistic, strong women. We're strong women. We're not easily swept under the rug. There is a side to us that tries to live more with our own vulnerability, that tries to live with our emotions, process emotions, live with things in a way that feels natural for us. And her way is different from mine. It's completely okay with me. All this is fine, This element in the problem, whenever it crops up, of dominance, of authoritarianism, of a lot of it is culture. A lot of it is what I inherited from my mum in terms of behavior. And a lot of it is what she inherited from her mum or her background in terms of upbringing, social background, patterns, stuff, just stuff that people used to do half a century ago, which is because we're old. We're both not 16 years old anymore. So our problems are the problems of this generation and not, necessarily if you're younger, this isn't going to apply that much to you. Or maybe not in this way, but I suppose authority and people assuming things for you, deciding things for you, just offhand like that. This is really crucial. It's really important for me. Also, I'm also using you again to talk to grapple with this whole problem, because it turns out that my friend's astrology is really different from mine. She might as well have been born on another planet. So that's kind of interesting, I think, funny. The thing is, I have been looking at them before in people's charts, and often there were charts of people that I hadn't known personally. This is the first time I actually found this situation where I get information out of the astrology that I couldn't get anywhere else, just like I said just now. And I can see how it applies. I can sort of see how it applies. How this strong woman, that's my friend of 30 30 years, has a significant part of her zodiac that has been deactivated. Maybe I should just put it like that. These are what's called intercepted signs in astrology. It turns out that the type of chart that she has occurs more often the further you go north from here. So I'm at 52 degrees. What is that? Longitude? Latitude? I can never tell those apart, never know which is which. So 52 degrees north, right? And she's from Scandinavia, so that's like way further north even. And you get an astrological configuration where there's like a twist in the chart. The whole thing goes strange, an optical illusion. So I'm thinking a lot of this whole interception business, which is a thing. So that's the video or the set of videos that I'll link in the description, are about intercepted signs. That's the official name for this phenomenon. And if you're not interested in any of that, never mind. I will just try and talk about my experience, because that's my side of, what I can bring here. And if I just make myself do that instead of talking about the Mercury and the nar, that's for other people to do, really, I think. So, yeah. So, I've discovered that this part of her that has been deactivated is something I've never seen before. It explains, using that, actually explains a couple of things that I see her do in her life, where, for example, she has a really hard time looking after herself. My friend is older than I am. How incredible is it for a woman over 50 to, it just hurts, it hurts me so much to see her do this. And I couldn't explain it, because to me, she looks like she knows exactly what to do. She's logical, she has self-control, she has the means. She could pay somebody. She could pay somebody to clean up the place after her, and that would help. And she doesn't do it because she cannot really look after herself. What she does is look after us. Is it familiar? Maybe it is. Tell me about it. People always running after other people, and when they go out the door, they look fine. When she comes over here, I am sure if she comes over here, she'll put on another outfit, a different outfit from if she goes to visit, somebody who's, for example, who's lived here all their lives, and who she adjusts her outfit to the person's expectations, the person that she's going to visit. I have very little expectations. I like her to wear nice colors. And I've said so. We comment on each other's outfits because we're females. That's what we do. It's nothing more than that. So if she will put on something a bit more colorful because she knows I like that. But it's not even that. She's clean on her person. Her clothes are always clean. It's impeccable. There's nothing you could see from her, the way she looks out in the street or out if you go into town with her. It's all fine. And she has not the easiest life, what with all the things going on over 2020 and 2021. So far, we're still in lockdown over here. Oh, it's endless. But she can't really look after her house, and I've tried to help her a couple of times get get things reorganized and so on. But I don't want to go into too much detail. I don't want to, describe things. And it's not like you could straighten it all out. My house is a mess. I've got junk all over the place, things that I'm working on. So who am I to talk? I don't know. I have workspaces that are empty, where I want to be doing things. If I need to sit at this table to have dinner with husband later on, all this junk over here will be out of the way easily enough. She lives alone, So there's the difference, right? She doesn't have to adapt inside the house to somebody coming over and things happening and all that. So she doesn't do that anymore. And I was just wondering so much whether I'm really struggling here too. The thing is, I just had to pause and look at my pigeons here, because I've got 3 pigeons sitting in my garden, my yard, walking around looking for grain that they normally get. The thing is, the real issue at the heart of this, and it comes out in the chart, in the astrology of the people, in a different way. But the thing that I want to point out here, I want to point out to myself, that I want to sort of figure out how to point it out, explain it, put it in a frame somehow. The thing that causes the whole problem is fear. I think that's the basis. That's where it all goes crazy. And when it goes crazy, I go crazy. It's so uncomfortable. That's the real reason that I'm trying to make this video. It's really difficult. But I think that if I'm honest, I just have to factor in fear into this whole thing. And it is actually more of a state of fear for me than it is for her. Although she lives, as I hear her talk about these things, with a state of fear permanently, and has lived in that way always, in a way that's much more like a constant vibration. For me, it's not like that. For me, fear is sudden attacks of terror and, exploding out of nowhere often, coming up from beneath the surface, things like that. So there's a big difference in how it goes about, how it works. And that is actually shown in the birth charts. For me, my fearful protocol, let me put it that way, my fear protocol is vulnerability that I tend to be able to fend off to a certain extent. The sun just came out, so hence the lighting issues here. And then I have spent 54 years, fending off the fear, where a lot of the time I had no clue what was going on. The fear was hidden 60 miles beneath the surface. So I suppose that actually makes sense. Wow, I'm actually managing to inch my way into the problem here with your help. Thank you. There is a trigger, because fear, no matter how it is organized in a person, there's still a triggering function. We trigger fear in each other through this whole dominance and authority behavior stuff, that we tend to project outwards, often at moments that we don't even realize that we're doing it. The same, she does the same. We are not aware of this. I am getting awareness of how this works over here on the channel. So yay. You have to have a third position, a third eye position to the side of the thing, and then see what's actually happening between A and B here. So my fear protocol has been trying desperately more and more in recent years to deal with the fear that comes out of the, 60 miles beneath the surface, deep out of the earth. And it has to do with lack of training, a lack of help when I was a kid, all caused by things that I've pointed out before: traumatized parents, traumatized grandparents, all the traumas, that has created a whole set of people, all the people in my family, doesn't matter who they are really, also descendants, in one way or another, they still suffer from this. From the Second World War, things that happened before the wars, it goes back into history. And of course, I'm a descendant of a set of people. My uncles, my cousins are sets of different descendants of different sets of people. So the influences aren't the same always. And for me, I had a sort of a really tough combo between my two parents, where they're both sort of shouldn't, they should have had more help. Everybody should have had more help. My grandmother was a common factor, my mother's mum, in all these family relationships and the ancestor relationships and so on. She should have had more help. Oh yeah. So the fact that people 30, 40, 60 years ago didn't have enough help, not only for a year or a decade, but always. They were always doing everything by themselves. They were always doing it alone, and they didn't do things together. They didn't make the kids together. It just happened to them. They were victims. They were victimized and they were victims. They had a victim mentality all the way through. But on top of the victim mentality was this huge, massive layer of coping mechanisms, coping behavior, putting on a brave face, pretending like absolutely nothing, whatever is the matter, and so on and so forth. This is my backstory here. I'm just sharing just a tiny sliver of here. My friend doesn't have this backstory. She has no Jewish ancestors, for example. She has a little, just a tiny little smidge of Second World War history in her background. And it's not the same as how things have been over here, because Scandinavia and Netherlands, there's a big difference between what happened in each country in those years that were actually the Second World War, but also for decades afterwards. Everything was, the whole premise is different, the whole, the way things built up is different, and so on and so forth. People's characters, people's mindsets, the culture, everything is really different. So always, I have assumed in my 30 years of friendship with her, I've assumed that a lot of the things that I didn't understand or couldn't make sense of, I just wrote off towards different culture, different language, different education. She is into computer programming, and I'm much more an artist and a linguist. So there's already, and so on and so forth. I have had challenges in my life that she's never heard of, that I can't explain to her. And even just having my parents was the biggest challenge of my life, if you believe it. Yeah, and certainly being the great big ass softie that I am on the inside, I had no idea, I had no clue. So no, it was small wonder that I hid all my anxieties 60 miles beneath the bedrock, inside, drilled deep in the bedrock with, lots of layers over the top. And so each time something actually came out, I was terrified and I was freaking out, and I couldn't make sense of any of it. And so as I sit here and I only really have my interpretation of my friend's birth chart, plus the 30 years of experience that I have with her, to look at, actually I am grateful for the concept and the word fear to use as the best possible tool to see what's going on for her, so that I actually will be able, my intention here is to learn to figure out how to take her the way she acts, a bit more with a grain of salt, not take her coping things completely at face value, which is what I've done. So far, I have taken her at face value. And what I've seen in the chart is those 4 signs that are intercepted, 4 signs that are sort of deactivated, that contain her sun, her Mercury, her moon, etc., etc. Parts of her person that are actually, she has sort of hidden assumptions. So let me go back to the 60 miles beneath the surface of the earth again. At, let's just say, at 50 miles underneath the surface are our assumptions about how life is supposed to be, you know, about how life is living itself, how our lives are colored in by themselves. If I just sit here with just one hand on top of the other, my life has a certain color by itself, all by itself. And it has a certain vibration. My life has a certain natural pattern to it, how it will always react in the same way. I will always react in the same way to any given, you know, stimulus, whatever it comes from. And there's a lot of it is completely unconscious. Yeah, that's what we call the subconscious, really, isn't it? So from the chart, again, to the psychology, I am thinking that she has self-worth issues and lack of confidence issues that are not organized in the same way that they are for me. They're the same issues, but they're organized differently. And there is just I don't know whether there are remedies for this, whether there are ways other than Tumo, which I am sure would just, you know, break off the whole illusion of the houses and the ascendant and all the rest of it. Maybe that's the only real answer to this whole situation, to the extent that as long as there is no solution or actual energy work solution for her to come into contact with this part of her, there is a part of herself that she just cannot know. And I can, and probably you also can. Most people get to know themselves better and in more detail, even if it is only viscerally, even if it is only intuitively, and you don't ever really. She has this incredible tendency to just let you're talking about an interesting subject. She's interested in 100 things, you know, also esoteric things, creative things, until out of the blue, suddenly, out of nowhere, you run into a wall with her. Because she just ran into some type of energy lack, and she cannot supply the self needed to have this discussion with me anymore. She just, she shuts down right in front of me. We're having a conversation about something. It's happened a number of times over the past year where she nearly gives me heart freeze. You know, it's very painful for me. And I have blamed her for doing this to me, where I'm also, you know, we are each other's only other person except for her work-related contacts and similar. She sees lots of people online. Most of them are online. We're the only person that each other sees in actual life, often enough. But I find it really difficult to live with somebody, to meet somebody once a week or once every 2 weeks, where I am suddenly really fearful whether I can actually talk about what's in my heart, what I'm doing. I can talk about things up to a point, and I just have to, like, I don't know, it's like walking on eggshells, except I don't do that because I forget what's, I'm in my tail here, I'm talking about my things. And she will just, out of absolutely nowhere, she will just completely shut down and shut me out. You can tell it by her eyes. Her eyes go blind. It's so scary. And she goes into this mode where she just sits there and apologizes for not being able to cope with this anymore. And it's like I'm attacking her. It's like I am just talking about something that's really positive and helpful to me. Things that I've experienced, Things that are important to me, I don't get to share with her. It's not for no reason that she doesn't watch my channel. So there are these signs, 4 signs have been deactivated in her chart. And knowing that, I can suddenly see why she cannot supply the part of the conversation. It just falls out of her. When she has mental control of the subject matter, then it's okay. When we talk about her work and her colleagues and her people that she meets and her students, it's all fine. When I show her paints and things, it's fine. You can see the things. But when I try to talk about things that she cannot see, after a while, she's this, like, her brain goes empty. She goes into, it's like she falls into a state of depression. Like that, she's gone. But now I have an understanding of how it works and why she does this. It isn't because she hates me, really, or because she's insanely jealous of me, or, whatever crazy other thoughts you might have had, or because she was really punished. I used to think she was punished really bad as a kid because she behaves for all eyes to see as if she were completely traumatized. Because traumatization for people is loss of self. Are these useful thoughts or what? I'm having 3/4 of an hour long-winded, very naughty session here. I think it's enough. I'm going to do a bit more curly whirlies. I'm going to have me an instant coffee with cinnamon just to perk me up a bit again. Thank you so much for hanging in here with my travails. I had a horrible phase with her this week, and it was, I was like feeling her state of utter incapacitation. And then I was reminded of the chart I'd seen earlier that week or last week. And I just went zit again. It was like click again. Same with my Chiron thing. And I just went, okay, so maybe that's actually what this means. Anxiety, because of the lack of self. You need to build up yourself, your real self, if you want to fight anxiety. There is a weapon against anxiety. Anxiety is caused by lack of self. Self-awareness, self-consciousness, self-reliability, inside self-reliance, is that the word? Yes. Where inside yourself you can rely on a part of you taking over. Your capacity to find words, like me, for example. Your capacity to go out and do sports because exercise always does you good. Your capacity to choose one or the other. All that is really self. Those are self mechanisms that you need. The better your self mechanisms are adjusted one to the other, like little carts on a train, the less anxious you will feel. You need to find your inner train, But if 4 out of your 12 carts are missing, or they're just those empty little They're carrier carts with just the wheels and the platform on top and no load. Maybe that's an interesting metaphor. I'm quitting here, quitting my video. Happy Easter. I hope you have a nice Easter where you are, and enjoy yourselves. There's going to be snow next week. This is a crazy country, and it's crazy times. And I'm also slightly weird. So maybe I'm well adjusted to all these times after all. That'd be something. Thank you so much for watching. I love you to pieces. And thank you for, listening to me ramble about these things. I'll put all the relevant links in the description, and you can check it out and if you want. Or not. Bye for now. Thank you. See you then. Ciao.